Hey guys, what's up? I'm back with 5 more RPGs I need to talk about. No indies this time, 3 remasters, 1 Chinese, and yeah, the one from the thumbnail. These are my reviews, so let's begin. Let's start with the Legend of Nayuta, Boundless Trails. The first remaster is from an action RPG developed by Falcom that never came out of Japan until today. That's right, released today on PS4, Switch and Windows. The original version came out in 2012, exclusively on the PSP, to some success in Japan, but with some balancing issues and annoying mechanics. Most of that was fixed in this remaster that looks absolutely fantastic, to be honest. I wasn't expecting it to look this good. You play as Nayuta and Noi. Nayuta is a 15-year-old kid living in a very small island with his older sister. One day, a ginormous ruin falls out of the sky, so he and his best friend Signa go investigate. Well, they meet the fairy Noi in what seems to be another world, vastly different from theirs. They also meet a beautiful girl who seems to be in a coma and realize this world is on the brink of something sinister. There's too much for the plot to be told in a nutshell, but it's really good. Now, this game isn't traditional, there's only one town where you'll do all your shopping and talking with NPCs. There's a store that sells weapons and armor for Nayuta, but you need to find ore in order to upgrade it and get better equipment. I wasn't a fan of this feature. Why can't I just buy new stuff like normal? Same for Noi. The store needs materials to upgrade the equipment they'll sell to you. Money is an issue here since everything is expensive and you barely get in the stages. But there's a museum where you can donate stuff you find in places in exchange for money. Not really what I'd call a donation, but whatever. You noticed I mentioned stages. That's right, you play every mission here through stages. There's a map in the other world with different areas you'll visit, each with a different climate, which can be altered later. When it does, everything including enemies changes. So you go around controlling Nayuta in simple hack and slash and some platforming in 3D. It works well despite being a bit frustrating at times. Noi moves by herself near you, but with an action button she can shoot magic spells at enemies. Now, both characters learn their abilities differently. Once you complete a stage, you get evaluated, and when you get enough stars, you go back to town to talk to this guy to have Nayuta learn a new move. Noi gets hers by defeating special enemies or elite monsters, or by advancing through the story. Combat isn't as great and fast as in the East games, but it's still decent enough to keep you challenged. Although I played on normal mode, it's fairly easy. My one and only complaint are the bosses. No, they aren't exactly tough or hard, they're extremely frustrating. Falcom wanted to be very creative with each, but all they did was make the battles tedious and annoying. Most bosses just aren't fun to fight, regardless of their difficulty. In this one, for example, I'm supposed to get up there to attack its core and I only have a very short amount of time to do so, but I can barely jump unless I use a barrier spell. It's frustrating. You have no healing items other than food your sister cooks for you. At least it gives you experience when you eat it. Other than that, I still find the game to be quite fun and enjoyable, somewhat addictive as well, believe it or not. It also has a very friendly interface, being able to teleport in and out of town or stages instantaneously, so if you die, even with its cheap deaths, it doesn't feel like a chore to try the stage again. It's a really good game, and this remaster is definitely recommended. Next is Shan Yuan Sword, the Gate of Firmament. This game is part of a long-running series from China. Most of them were computer RPGs, some have been fan-translated. We've only got 2 so far, 7, which I've covered a few times, and this one which came before it. Actually, it's a spin-off, so I'm surprised they didn't localize instead one of the mainline titles. No need to play the others to understand this one, they're all standalone. Like the others, this one is very focused on the folklore and ancient deities, mixing myths with fantasy. Miuye watches how her sister gets petrified, and due to a powerful rite from some crazy sect, apparently she gets transported to the mortal world below, a world where bandits are attacking small villages and destroying tribes. Sikong Yu belongs to one such tribe and he sets traps to alert him when bandits are nearby. His sister gets kidnapped one day and when he goes to save her, his fated encounter with Muye happens. Now, despite being an interesting plot and premise, the story goes off the rails sometimes. It isn't your average linear narrative, as different things happen like in the Tales games, leading to other events. But taking Muye back to her city and her sister remains as the goal of the game. Unfortunately, all versions are poorly translated. It's like they hired one random dude in China that barely knows English and he used probably Google Translate for the script. So many typos make the storytelling weak and frustrating. The gameplay is traditional here, as you'll go from town to town with an overworld with different forests or ruins, etc. Graphics are beautiful here, but the character models, while pretty and detailed, move very strangely sometimes. Combat is real time, but there's a catch. You can't directly control your characters or even move them. You just select the commands you want them to use, all sharing the same waiting bar. When it's on, you can use either a healing item or a regular attack or a magic attack. Palettes can be arranged in the menus. Your allies will act on their own, also consuming healing items when they feel like it. You can also capture monsters in this game and equip only one to be summoned in battle limitlessly, but they also have a waiting bar that fills up over time. Finally, you can switch to any ally at any time during battle with no restrictions whatsoever. Of course, they all control very differently. Eventually, they'll learn more passive and active skills with points they get when leveling up, and their regular attacks will be able to create consecutive combos like this one for example. I really like this combat even though it can get messy because of all that's happening at the same time. It's a good game, but it's also one of those with ridiculous bosses. Most of them are stupidly hard and will force you to grind a lot. That's exasperating since there's no easy mode, only normal or hard. So if you don't mind the grind fest, give this very unique RPG a chance. Moving up to Rhapsody, the Marl Kingdom Chronicles, and we're gonna start with Rhapsody II. Instead of compiling the whole trilogy, NIS decided to release the first Rhapsody with Lapusel Tactics on the Switch and Steam last year. That game was originally released on PS1, 10 years later, remade on a Nintendo DS. We got both versions, but never its sequels. That is until this year, remastered on Switch, PS5 and Windows. The first sequel was originally released on the PS1. It follows Kururu, a 12-year-old princess and daughter of Cornet, the protagonist of the first Rhapsody. She's tired of the boring life in the castle, so she sneaks out often to seek adventure, but especially to find a handsome prince to fall in love with, just like her mother once did. The gameplay is identical to its predecessor, and the visuals are absolutely beautiful. I love the pixel art here. Some new music themes are here, but most are reused from the first game. NIS America went to the trouble of hiring voice actors for this remaster to include a very decent English dub. It's also a pixelated boob jiggling fest, as you can see. Way more songs have been produced for it, more than in the first game. They're all silly but charming at the same time. This sequel is longer, about 12 to 15 hours long, whereas the first one was barely 10 hours. You will explore different towns and areas, often leading to caves, ruins, or dungeons. The encounter rate is high here, one of the most annoying things about the game. Thankfully, the interface is once again pretty quick, so it isn't as tedious as in other JRPGs. Combat, however, isn't played on grids anymore. Kururu won't have the monsters fighting by her side either. Instead, she can summon one per turn to execute one action. A variety of characters will be joining you for different missions. Sometimes you'll get a few, sometimes a bunch. But only Cello, Kururu, and her best friend Kreia can summon puppets, the monsters. They can equip up to only 3 and their stats will be greatly influenced by them. You can also equip both characters and puppets with 3 useful accessories with passive skills. There's only 2 ways to recruit puppets. One is to find them in different places, which is rare. The other is that they'll join you automatically but also randomly at the end of battle. But only the ones you equip will gain experience, so beware. Finally, the music notes you see there increase after every time you summon a puppet. You can use special attacks with Kururu once at least one bar has filled up. Anyway, once more, the game's rather easy, but it is just slightly more difficult than the first one, but they're honestly both a walk in the park. Because of the pacing, both games can eventually become rather addictive to play, so they're really fun with tons of great humor. I like Cornet more than her daughter Kururu, but in everything else, this sequel surpasses the first game. Definitely recommend it. Moving on to Rhapsody III. Once this game starts, you immediately suspect it's just fan service. There's 6 episodes total, but the first 4 are just random 2 and 3 hour long chapters they pulled out of their asses just for fun. However, later you realize you need to complete them in order to unlock the 5th chapter, which is the main quest. You now play as Sherry, since she's still a kid all the way into adulthood, but obviously with time jumps in between. It's worth playing through the chapters since they're all cleverly designed to have a lot of fun, especially if you're already a fan of the series. And if you've made it this far, well, obviously that means you are. All in order to reach Sherry's tragic, deeply emotional and heartbreaking chapter. Definitely a tear-jerking arc, I'm not kidding. Graphics in this game are beautiful, and I'm glad they remastered not only the pixel art, but also the backgrounds. This is, after all, a PlayStation 2 original game, so it looks fantastic on the PS5 and Switch. Songs are back, but there aren't many like in Rhapsody II. This one from the Marjorie family is my favorite of them all. Gameplay is a bit different on every chapter, but the controls and interface and the battle system are the same as before. Thankfully, encounter rate decreased considerably and exploration is much more bearable. However, the one thing that changed drastically is the combat. As you've been seeing, you now have a crap ton of party members to take care of. You can equip them all with whatever you want, but you cannot control them during combat. And that is one of the main reasons why this game, unlike its easy as hell predecessors, is stupidly unbalanced. They must have gotten a lot of backlash from fans in Japan for the first 2 games, since this one is quite challenging and a massive grindfest, especially on Chapter 6, since it's basically a post-game dungeon and nothing more. You can only select commands of the 4 leaders of each group, unless one of those leaders is a puppet master, like Cornet for example. That way you can select the other sections, otherwise everyone in your group will act on their own. Often they defend and waste their turn for no reason. Half of the time they're smart and fight properly at least. Still, it's very annoying not to be able to control everyone, but I guess selecting commands for every single party member will make battles take forever. Although there's another battle feature that's pretty useful, especially for grinding. The turn order makes absolutely no sense. You'd think a character's speed stat will play a factor on it, but no, it's a damn mess. The game gives the next turn to whoever it feels like, and most of the time it's random. I wish they could have worked more on this combat because it's really good, but the balance is out of control. Surprisingly though, this game's still quite addictive to play, and it is the best out of the 3. Despite its major flaws, it's super fun, I mean it. I mean, you get to play around with Marjorie, which is extra fun if you catch my drift. And Sherry's quest alone is worth everything here. Good luck with the post-game dungeon though, I recommend a walkthrough, else you'll get lost like me. And the final boss is cheap as hell. Alright, at long last, the one you've been waiting for, Final Fantasy XVI. But this review is based only on the demo. I am not planning on getting this game anytime soon, that's how little I care for it. However, I liked a lot what I played. Now, let me explain that contradiction. This action RPG has a mature rating because there's a lot of swearing, blood and mature themes. You play as Clive, part of the royal family who's been named as the Shield of the Dominant, in this case his little brother, who is the reincarnation of the Phoenix. People in this world cannot live without a mother crystal, supplying them with energy and magic, I guess. So 2 nations are at a possible war. During an invasion, Clive's brother transforms into the Phoenix, goes berserk, and another big monster like him, called the Acons in this game, appears, they fight, everybody dies, and as a result Clive ends up being pretty much an enslaved soldier. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, no need to mention the graphics, which look mind-blowing, as expected of a AAA studio like Square Enix. This is where most of their money goes to, after all, and it shows. As an action RPG, the game plays just fine, with decent controls. It's just the exploration feels a bit weird because the character you control feels somewhat sluggish, just a minor complaint. You only play as Clive and a couple of times as his brother. You have party members, but you can't customize them, equip them, nothing. They fight on their own, kinda like in the Nier games, and they don't level up. You can only equip Clive with different accessories, some which may alter his performance in battle, like these bracelets for example. You also have a skill tree that unlocks both passive and battle abilities. Each Acon has its own tree. That's right, you'll be able to use the power of different Acons throughout the game and can switch to any of them at any time during battle. These are played on real time, 100% hack and slash. You execute regular combos, but you can also dash towards enemies, evade, and counter using the R1 button in a quick time moment, and use the power of your equipped icon for more damage, although this one has a cooldown. You can also stagger enemies and bosses once you break them, and that is the best moment to use the icon powers. You have no control over your allies except for the dog, which you can command with a couple of skills, and that's it. Do not play this game on story mode. It's ridiculously easy. Adventure mode is better, but the bosses have a lot of unnecessary HP just to make their battles last as long as they can. Typical of modern action RPGs, man. There's also these quick time event battles with the Acons that I thought looked phenomenal, but are there just to impress the player like in plenty modern hack and slash games. Regardless, I greatly enjoyed the combat here. As an action RPG, it's pretty damn good, feels satisfactory and immersive. However, I've been saying this for many years. This is not Final Fantasy at all. Square Enix just keeps changing things every single time, trying to mimic other successful games or genres. I mean, what's there for the next mainline title? A Souls-like? A first-person shooter? A free-to-play open world? It's laughable. This series has become nothing but a joke to milk a name that shouldn't even be theirs anymore. So in conclusion, as a AAA random action RPG that feels more like a Western RPG, sure, I do recommend it. It's pretty good. As a Final Fantasy game, well, it's only that in name. Definitely not. Wait for the price to drop considerably or get it on sale. So those were the 5 RPGs I needed to review, and that's it. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time!